Could your weight gain be due to your hormones? If this is something that's been going around in your mind because you can't account for why you've gained weight, you might have even been encouraged to think that it might be your hormones by well-meaning friends or colleagues. There's a good chance you might be considering going to make an appointment with a doctor, or you might have already been to see the doctor about this very thing. If you've gone down the internet rabbit hole of investigating this, why you might be gaining weight and feeling tired, there's a good chance you'll have been led to read around underactive thyroid and felt convinced that this applies to you, particularly if you feel that nothing else has changed in your wider life to account for the weight gain thrown in with a bit of feeling tired. Let me run through how this scenario tends to play out in general practice. Sarah comes to see me because she's feeling fed up. She's probably gained 10 to 15 pounds, and that's a couple of dress sizes. Most people don't come to the doctor for a medical explanation if they've just gained a few pounds. Most people aren't going to run the gauntlet of trying to get an appointment if it's only happened over a short period of time. But when it's a long period of time and there's a feeling that nothing else has really changed, people do start to wonder if there could be something wrong with their hormones. So while Sarah's running through all of the description of the last year, I am listening for clues for any kind of a medical problem. I'll also be asking about the timeline of all of this. What other factors may or may not have changed in the background? And let's say she tells me that nothing else has changed and that's part of the reason why she's here. She's a couple of stone heavier, she's feeling tired, she wants her hormones checked. Fine. I will push her to explain what other things she's got going on. Kids, work, periods, family, friends, sports, diet, sleep, all these different things that make us who we are relevant to this consultation. I'll only get a snapshot at this stage, but there's a good chance we'll be coming back to it. So I agree with Sarah. It is worth doing some bloods, and pretty much all GPs in my position would do that too. There's a panel of things that we tend to do with these kind of symptoms, and a thyroid function test is part of that panel. In reality, the results nearly always come back normal. In 18 years of general practice, I haven't once found with this set of symptoms that a thyroid has been underactive and been the main culprit. Even though I know this, I will still do the test because it's still a possibility. It's just pretty rare. Now, people in different sectors, potentially private clinics, are going to make the case that the reference ranges the NHS uses are not optimal for health. These people may or may not be trying to sell you something, but that is a case that is often made. This might be true, and certainly when we're measuring, reproductive hormones, the reference ranges that the NHS uses are set for disease. The reason for that, and the reason it's not going to change anytime soon, is how do we define what's optimal? Optimal is so individual, I don't see that we're going to be able to do anything about that. My optimal cup of tea is not like yours, and it's only achievable when I make it. Sarah comes back to see me. I tell her results are normal, and 9 times out of 10, she's disappointed. This is a common paradox. Disappointed to have normal results. And I get that, because the logical thinking would be, well, if it's abnormal, we add in some medication, we correct the problem, it all goes away and everything goes back to the way it was. It just doesn't happen like this. If only it did. Even when there is a biochemical imbalance or problem that can be chemically corrected, doesn't make things go back to the way they were. Somebody taking a stable dose of HRT or thyroxine or even insulin will still have day-to-day variations in their need for this hormone, and because you're taking it externally, the body isn't able to adapt for the individual daily demands like it would have once done. So back to Sarah. Why has she gained weight in the last year when nothing has changed? The answer is tied up in that timeline, in that unique mix of everything that's going on in her life. Even if you're putting the same fuel in, you have changed in the background. Let me use a crude example like a car. You buy a new car, when it's new, it's optimized, and that's your best chance of getting that unrealistic miles per gallon that the salesman tells you this car is capable of. Drive that car, sometimes fast, sometimes over rough terrain, forget to service it now and again, maybe leave the lights on. That car is going to accumulate wear and tear, and at the end of a year, you're not going to get the same miles per gallon that you did when it was shiny and new. That's a bit of a rough correlation, but our bodies are aging, whether we choose to acknowledge it and embrace it, or whether we choose to just try and ignore it, it's going on in the background anyway. Most of us have long periods of sitting down because of the type of jobs that we do. What does this do? Causes muscles to atrophy. We have periods of stress. Stress raises your cortisol. Cortisol is damaging. We have interrupted sleep. Sleep is how we regulate cortisol and perform repair. It's not always optimal. The result means that these periods of wear and tear damage our skeletal muscle, and we haven't got the same reserves of muscle to burn fuel like we did maybe a year ago. That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is the amnesic effect that we all have about the food and drinks that we consume. When we're asked to think about what we eat, and I do this exercise all the time with people go straight to the meals, usually to their dinner. That might be fine, but we tend to forget about the alcohol, the lattes, the taking bits off the kids' plates rather than throw it in the bin, the handful of sweets that you had on the way through reception. All of these things add up over time. And I'm not judging you. These things are as much of a challenge in my life as they are in anybody else's, but they add up over time. And these things stick when you're 40 plus, they don't stick when you're 25. So even if you are leaving the consultation with a prescription, you've still got to come back to this timeline. You're still going to have to make changes. Even if that prescription is for Ozempic, that is no magic bullet. If you want it to work, you're going to need to come back to this timeline. There are some prescriptions that definitely do cause weight gain. I've already alluded to insulin. Steroids for long-term inflammatory conditions, horrendous for causing you to gain weight. Some antidepressants can do the same thing, although they don't tend to be the most common ones that we use. You can see that whichever angle you're coming at this from, you're probably still going to need to come back to that timeline and that unique mix of how you live, how you sleep, how you move, what you put into your body. The most helpful thing that you can do is get a big piece of paper and put as detailed a timeline on that piece of paper as you can muster. Remember to include sleep. It may be there's a couple of key pieces of that puzzle that you just haven't put together, but the process of writing it down brings it all together. I often liken general practice to collecting puzzle pieces over a long period of time, because we see things that are emerging or that change over time, unlike hospital medicine, which is much more in the moment. Hopefully this has given you a different, wider perspective to understand this. I do offer help to some people who are struggling with these type of things and need help with lifestyle change. But most people won't need that. Most people just need help to be able to shine the spotlight on different things other than hormones.